Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Saturn Return Diaries podcast. My name is Courtney. I'm your host. If you're new here, welcome. Super excited that you're here. And you guys, if you've been around for a while, well, then you know what to do. Come over to YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. And if you're in the podcast world, definitely come over to Saturn Return Diaries on Instagram because I like connecting and hearing what you guys think about the episodes. And I've been getting some pretty cool messages, so keep those coming. I love them so much. But today I'm super excited. I want to just get right into this. If you are in the podcast space, then you would have already heard my intro to Cheryl and how I met her, but we will talk probably a little bit about that today. And I just am so excited. We are in different time zones. And it's morning for me, it's afternoon for her. And I just think this is so cool. This is like one of the most amazing things about the online space and meeting people. And I don't know, my MC in Sagittarius just freaking loves this. So let's get into it. Let's talk to Cheryl about her Saturn return. So, hi, Cheryl. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Cord. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I knew a few months ago, I was like, I think we were voice noting and I was like, I knew this idea was coming and I'm like, I just don't know when. And I was like, I know I have to have Cheryl on this. Like, I just know it has to happen.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, super excited. So, just so people know, where are you in the world?
I am in the beautiful England in the United Kingdom. And England is a country in the United Kingdom. If you didn't know, people get very confused. Like, what is the United Kingdom? What's England? Is Wales a country? What's Scotland? What does it all mean? I'm in England. Not in London, though. I'm in a place called the Lake District, which is in the north. It's kind of towards Scotland. So it's like 3 hours north of London. In the countryside, in the lakes, in the mountains, tourist vibes. That's where I am.
So, like, obviously, I've never been there, but it's so beautiful in your like Instagram stories, the dips that you do. I'm always like, I need to get in.
It is the wild swimming mecca. People travel from far and wide to swim here. It's true.
It's so beautiful. So anyway, you guys have to follow Cheryl on Instagram to hear more about that and watch that. But yeah, I love this. I love that you're there. I'm in Vancouver, obviously, and maybe we'll get into this, but you used to live here. So I do want to hear a little bit more about that. But let's start with this. Who I like asking people this. Who is Cheryl? Like on a personal human level, who are you?
God. Oh God, I've never been asked that question before. I feel like I've just been asked a question by Oprah. What is it? She asked people, what do you know for sure? And people are like, oh my God, I have no idea.
Yes.
Like I've just been asked an Oprah question. What's the question? Who is Cheryl really as a person?
Yeah.
Cheryl is a very sensitive soul who really wants to help people go from being afraid of other people and connecting with other people to partnering with other people, whether that's romantically, friendship wise, business wise, learning to trust themselves, learning to trust other people again, because that's been my journey. I'm referring to myself in third person, but I'm just going to continue.
I love it. Keep going.
Cheryl is also a creative soul who loves the arts and who's really learned a lot about herself through film, television, theatre, and writing. Cheryl's a person who believes that no part of our sexuality is bad or wrong, and anything we do with a consenting partner, as long as it's safe, sane, and consensual, it's all fair game, as long as everyone's happy, right? There's no shame in it. I believe that shame is not an effective vehicle for transformation, and sexuality, there's no place for shame there. Have fun with it. It's meant to be fun. And I also believe that sexuality is about self-acceptance. And I believe that we can't truly love ourselves if we're rejecting a part of ourselves like our sexuality or our shadow. And I have a shitload of Scorpio in my chart, which we'll get to. So that's where the sexuality and the shadow comes from. But yeah, I definitely have a relationship with my shadow, and that is a massive part of the work that I've done for myself and also the work that I do with other people in accepting themselves more. So yeah, that's who I am as a person, as a soul. Yeah, it's very what it feels like for me. Everything's interlinked in terms of who I am and what I do. So it's not like I want to give people a business pitch, but at the same time, like who I am and what I've been through and what I do professionally, it's like a Venn diagram that overlaps so much. It's kind of like inextricably linked, you know, I can't separate the two.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think it's the way that you actually describe that is really beautiful because one of the reasons why I like to ask this question is because I do feel like in our world, in our modern society, that a lot of people base who they are off of what they produce or
Mm.
their job title. And through my journey of like moving into entrepreneurship, I had to go through this obviously like massive identity shift, which I'm sure you had, we all do.
Mm.
And so I think it's so interesting to hear how we describe ourselves, but then also how you described part of that has been a personal development journey. And that's like your work is very closely tied to things that you've been through. And it's just cool. The way that you described it is really beautiful. So I like
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So now, like, what is it that you do?
What's Cheryl's job? Well, I am officially a relationship expert. And one of the things I'm really brilliant at is spotting patterns. So when someone comes to me, I can understand this is who you've been attracting on repeat. Let's find out where it comes from. Let's heal that. Let's take you from being a disaster in love, obsessed, clinging, chasing, obsessing, all of that. Let's take you from that to actually building partnership, building connection, getting married, having babies, which interestingly enough, you will know, Court, is very Scorpio South Node to Taurus North Node, which is my placement. Mm-hmm. So taking people from that dating drama to actually creating partnership and getting married and having babies and getting them from point A to point B, and doing that is a lot of deep dive shadow work. You know, it's not uncommon for me to ask, tell me about your father. People are like, do we have to? Can't I just draw a card and see when he's going to call me? I mean, you can, but it's not going to help you. Like, we need to like dive into the depths of the lake, like 200 feet down. We're going down to, base level here. So
there's
that's
Scorpio. Yeah.
Scorpio vibes. Like, let's get right into it. Like darkness. Let's do it. Let's go there. Yeah, because without that, it's like we're just spinning in circles, avoiding stuff. So I help people to feel their feelings. I help them to understand, like, what did you feel when your father left? What did you feel when he passed away? How was that for you when your mother didn't respond to you and didn't nurture you and didn't accept you? And don't actually say, I felt sad, and like intellectualize it, but can you feel it in your body? Can you, cry it out either in session or, privately afterwards? Like, how do you want to release that emotion? How do you want to express that emotion? Do you want to paint something? Do you want to write something? Do you want to sing? Do you want to do the primal scream when you're driving in the countryside on your own? Like, how do you want to express that emotion? And from there, like, what beliefs did that give you when you experienced that? What beliefs did it bring up? I'm not lovable. Okay, so let's work with that. Let's change that. How can we change that? How can you go from that belief to a belief that you are lovable and you are worthy of being treated well? How do we take you there, right? So that's the work I do with people. So technically, I'm a relationship expert and I help people, get married, get engaged, have babies and all of that. But I don't do it through, here's what to text him, here's what to wear on a date, here's where to meet the guy. Like, fuck that. That's such bullshit. Yeah. Like, we're old souls. We have some issues. We need to work through it. And, sometimes past lives come up, or karma, and that's always some juicy shit when that comes up in a session. But yeah, it's deep work and it's real work. It's like, there's so much there.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah. Everything, like, it's just, I'm laughing because it's so funny that we're going to get into Cheryl's astrology, but like, if you haven't already guessed, like, I would be surprised because she's living I said this before we jumped on the call, but you're living your chart, and you guys will hear this as we start to kind of talk more and unpack the astrology, but there's a lot to come for Cheryl, and what you're saying and describing of like the work that you do. We can see how this is going to be very important moving forward in our world, right? Maybe more so, I don't know, in the next couple years because of all the healing that's going to need to take place. And, anyway, I'm sure we can all feel that, but I said this, I was like, I'm just really excited to see the work that you're, and also helping other people through their Saturn returns, because I feel like relationship is a big part of that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how that came up for you. But anyway, love all of that so much.
Mm.
And also I was laughing because I'm like, yeah, this is like,
Could I be any more Scorpio? Like,
oh
honestly.
yeah, 100%. And I love it. Like we need to take that rug out. Like let's
Yeah.
get to the bottom here.
Let's get to the messy stuff. That's where the good stuff is, roll around in the mud. Like, let's get dirty with this. Like, we need to get into the stuff that you don't want to look at. You're not going to get there otherwise.
100%. So, okay, tell us your astrology. Cheryl actually knows her astrology pretty well. I will say, I was like, oh my God, I'm so impressed. So, let's start with your sun, moon, rising. We'll go
yeah.
over.
Sure. Sun is in Taurus, moon is in Virgo at 28 degrees. So that's very high. Yeah. And I'm Scorpio rising. I forget the degrees of Scorpio rising, but that's quite high too. And yeah, that's my placements.
I love that so much. I feel like I was looking at it and I'm like, yeah, when we have those higher degree points, very transformational. So you're really tapping into that. We can use the words like higher octave of like that energy. And there's so much information around degrees, but like it's so, I guess the way I'll describe it is something that I see. Not every astrologer would say this, but early degrees to me feels like very new. Like we're learning new lessons. We're moving through the newness. Whereas like degrees that are a little bit further out, they're like, oh, you came here to like change stuff because you've been an old soul. You've done this a few times.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I love that so much. So what do you relate to, I guess, within that sun, moon, rising energy, if anything, or how do you feel that shows up for you in your life?
I feel like my Taurus, my Scorpio feels very, very strong. And this might be a North Node, South Node thing anyway, because I'm North Node in Taurus and South Node in Scorpio. So that's there. And also my Sun and my North Node are conjunct. I don't know what the fuck that means, but I've been told it's conjunct. I guess that means it's like more.
Yeah. Love it. Love it so
I can
much.
get to also Mercury in Aries, so I can be a little direct, a little aggressive. So it is what it is. So yeah, I feel like I'm really connected to my sun and my rising. I feel like with the Taurus side, it's just like the conversation we had last night. I sent you a voice note and I was like, hey, just let you know, I'm going to switch off my devices at about 8 p.m. locals. That's about like noon for you. I'm going to like run a bath, read a book, do some breath work, like have a cup of tea. She's like, you're such a Taurus. So that's how I like feel like a Taurus, like being out in nature, nurturing myself, good food, beautiful linens, like all of that stuff. And then the Scorpio rising, I think it's my passion, my drive. I know Scorpio is a water sign, but I feel like it gives me a lot of fire. Maybe that's also the Aries stuff in my fifth house as well. I don't know, but I feel like the Scorpio side is like my passion, my depth. I don't want to sound like an asshole, but also like there's a certain kind of magnetism about me because of that Scorpio vibe. The sexuality comes into play as well. I just really love Scorpio energy. I love it in other people. I like it in me. It's a great placement. I really relate to Scorpio a lot. I think the Scorpio piece for me is my passion and my sexuality and my connection to both of those things. Yeah.
I love that so much. I feel like, yeah, the way that you described it too, of like that depth of Scorpio is it probably even helps you in the clients that you work with to really support them on an empathetic level. Scorpios are like, they can dig deep and like be that phoenix, right? That like rises and goes there, but it's in such a compassionate way. So it encourages us to dig deep and like find that power within. So yeah. Do you attract a lot of Scorpios?
It's a great question. I actually don't know. I don't often get into people's astrology. Sometimes we cover it, but we more get into like one thing that comes up is like Myers-Briggs. So I get a lot of like INFJs and INFPs and those kinds of people. Are you one of those?
I'm an INFJ.
Of course you are. Of course you are. So am I. Why am I surprised? I had someone tell me once, she was like, oh no, if you're an INFJ, you don't attract other INFJs. I'm like, I attract them like a magnet. What you're talking about? Like, we just like seek each other out subconsciously. So yeah, I get a lot of that in my practice, people that are those kind of personality types. The people that I struggle to work with are like I forget what you call them, like the analytical personality types, like ISTP, and they're like very analytical. Like if you can't drop down and feel, I probably can't help you. Like, and that's just the truth, right? If someone's like in their head and they can't or won't move to their feelings, then I can't help you. It's like someone being on the surface of the water and they're like, I'm not going to dive down there. I'm like, well, that's where we're going. So like, I don't know what to say. I could drag you down. That's probably going to be good.
That might be uncomfortable for you. Yeah, maybe it's a good thing. But I love that because, you know, I say Scorpio is the ocean. Like it's literally the depths of the ocean.
Yes.
And if we're talking about water signs, Pisces would be the fish, right? And then so like what's on top of that surface? The waves, which could be Pisces or it could also be Cancer, but underneath is that like Scorpio energy. And it's so on point. So all of this, I love it so much. And so I guess from there, is there anything else about your astrology? You mentioned that you have your North and South node, and I've heard you talk about this before. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of my 20s in Scorpio energy. Very much, like particularly not in my career, funnily enough. So I'd be interested to see what was going on transit wise in my 20s, because something was definitely very aligned, which was amazing. I don't know what it was, but relationship wise, I was in a very Scorpio state of mind. I was drinking too much, I was taking drugs, I was partying, I was out of control outside of my career, like in my personal life. I was obsessed with people. I was chasing partners that didn't want me. There was like that real like obsession vibe, that real shadow Scorpio. And there was a lot of destruction, like self-destruction and really unhealthy behaviors, which isn't all astrology. Like astrology is not everything, but it was a big piece of the pie. So yeah, that Scorpio South node was very prevalent in my 20s and in my teens, frankly, like very Scorpio vibes. And then my 30s has been more building, nurturing, connecting, slowing down, which has been very challenging for me, very stubborn, very unwilling to change. And ultimately, I've just had to slow down because my body let me know I couldn't keep going at that pace anymore. And moving from Scorpio to Taurus is quite abrupt. It's like moving from a storm to like a calm summer's day on the beach. And it's like really quite, I'm like, oh, what? Like, so it was quite jarring, but I feel like I've settled into it a bit now. And what it feels like for me now, my Taurus North node is I feel like I'm moving towards like really creating beautiful partnerships, community, homes, wealth, sustainable stuff. Like I feel like I'm building to last rather than before I'd build something really quick and then destroy it, like build, destroy, build, destroy. Whereas now I just feel like I'm building something slowly and it's going to be built to last for a long time. Legacy vibes.
Yeah, that's amazing. So for those of you who don't know North Node and South Node, I haven't done an episode on this here, but the nodes are really, really important, and they can tell us a lot about, you know, it can be past life, it can be the patterns that we hold in our life now and what we've brought in, and the energy that we're really comfortable with. And so when we have like an energy like a Scorpio South node, that darkness can feel really comfortable to be in, and almost like that self-sabotage and learning, like how you said, going from a storm to the beach. That is such a good like representation. Or like being in the forest, just like looking up at the trees. Like it's so like that's dynamic there. So I love that we brought this up because it actually have a little theory. And this theory is that when we enter our Saturn return, that's when our nodes, like it's almost like a switch turns.
Yeah.
And it's like on it goes, time to really step into your North node, whatever it is. So I think that it kind of goes hand in hand. I don't know if you've felt that personally during your Saturn return or not.
I think that's a great theory, Cole, and I think you're bang on the money there. Yeah, 100%. I definitely felt that. I heard it said somewhere that like you can pretty much get away with anything in your 20s. Like you can be not on your path, you can do whatever you want, and then 29, it's like boom, showtime, baby. Like you're not going to get away with it if you're here to do important stuff. If you've got your soul's work and you're not doing it, like you'll be kind of smacked on your ass in order to really wake up and do that. And I was, and you know, I know we're going to get to these questions, but like when I look at how my life was up until 31. Like, despite all the chaos in my personal life, career-wise, things were great. And then at 31, like everything just fell apart because I was actually not in integrity or alignment, even though I thought I was. So the past, like up to Saturn return, things were really good. But then the past 5 years, from 31 to now 36, have been very much that that node switch. It feels like going from Scorpio to Taurus, and it's been like climbing Everest naked with only my hands and feet. That's kind of what it's felt like painful, like I might die, like I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it felt. Yeah. I also have a Leo midheaven, so I'm a little dramatic.
Yeah. Okay. I love it though. But yeah. The Leo midheavens, I love those so much. I'm like, okay, you guys are meant to be seen. So, show us the way. Be the leader on your hike through Everest naked. Very
oh my God.
Yeah, we'll dive into this. I think there's a lot to unpack in a sense because we haven't had anyone on the podcast who has had Saturn in Scorpio. So this means that there's a lot to this, obviously. Saturn, as you guys know, is about our structure and our system within ourselves and like what we're doing on a just in our life. And Scorpio does have this energy that is really related to work and building something or being in a position of power. But it's like, how are you using that position of power, right? Is that position of power in alignment with your soul, or is it from an ego way or what you thought you should be? Because as we know, Saturn's like shed the shoulds, shit or get off the pot. That's like the new thing. So yeah, let's dive into this a little bit. So take us back to, I guess, like, where were you around the age of like 27, 28? So it's kind of setting the stage for that time in your life.
I wrote a list, so I'm just going to bring that up. Virgo moon, 28 degrees, of course I have a list.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. Also, before I get into the list, I just want to say, like, thank you so much for what you just said about Saturn and power and ego, because I just had the biggest epiphany, and we can cover that in a minute if you want. I was like, oh shit, that's what it was about.
Oh my God, dive into it.
Yeah, like there's so much there. Okay, so what I did was I couldn't remember like what years things correlated to, so I wrote like what ages I was in which years. So, and my birthday is in May. May the 1st, if anyone wants to know. Feel welcome to shower me with affection and praise and nice words on social media on the 1st, or abuse, which someone did one year.
Yeah.
Got blocked. Like, whichever way you swing, like, it's all good. So age 27, May 2012. I was working at the headquarters of a corporation who did like water and water, hilarious, like Scorpio. It was a company that did water stuff, like utilities in Vancouver.
Okay. So you were in Vancouver at this time?
Correct. In 2012. Okay. Yeah. I'd moved from like working as an assistant, like an executive assistant, into doing internal communications and events. And eventually at that point in May 2012, I'd set up their media relations division. Very Leo. So by age 28, which was by like May 2013, I then had moved from that company to a PR company just like down the street. And I'd made a big shift in my career to work for that PR firm. And then by age 29, so we're talking about 2014, I'd moved from that PR firm into being self-employed. So by age 29, when Saturn Return started, I became self-employed. Wow. So I said to my PR people, I'm quitting to become a life coach. They thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. But at that point, I'd been doing, so in 2011, I started my journey on personal development because the company I was working for, the CEO was very conscious, and he wanted everyone in the company, 2,000 people, to have access to his coach. So he said to me, he called me into his like big like corner office one day overlooking like, North Vancouver and the mountains and all of that. I can't remember what street it was on. Was it no, it wasn't Hastings Street. Maybe it was Hastings. Anyway, so he's standing there and he's like, here's the idea I have. Can you organize it? Of course I can, Virgo moon. So I organized that, and by going to this event, like, it just changed my entire life. This guy was like the South African Tony Robbins, like the CEO's coach. He was amazing. Wow. So I had that awakening, and that was just before, that was at 26. So anyway, so then I become self-employed, and then by the age of 30, so May 2015, I was making a lot of money being self-employed. I was my now I'm now relating this to what you said before. My ego was out of control. I was not handling it well. I was hadn't really healed from a lot of stuff in my past, so it all went to my head. I was very cocky, very arrogant, always creating drama in the online space and like posting things that were like loosely about someone, but not really addressing it with them, and just being kind of like gossip mongering. Quite ashamed to say that actually, because it's not who I am now, but it's who I was then, and it's where I was at. And I made a lot of money, like a lot of money. And age 31, I started incorporating like relationships and sexuality and writing into my gifts, and I released a book. And then after that, things collapsed. So I had this real like build. And then after the age of 31, like 31 to 36, the notes I wrote were demolition, rebuild, past lives, karma, and building a relationship business. So it's almost like, I had it described to me once by an astrologer, like the universe knocked you on your ass, which is exactly what it felt like. I felt like they were like, no, Cheryl, no, we're not, no. And I got humbled big time. Big time, because I was not using my power well. And I think if I'd continued on that path, I could have become like some of the people in the online space that I think are not in integrity. So I'm actually really glad that I was knocked on my ass, though it was really unpleasant. And I do feel like compassion for where I was then, but I don't feel very proud of who I was in that like age 29 to 31 period of time. I felt like in retrospect, I wasn't really the highest version of me, you know?
Yeah. Wow. That is like, it's clear that you've done a lot of work around that, obviously, to, even say those things and to bring that to light. I think when someone says like, I'm not really proud of who I was during that time, but I also hold compassion, like that's so huge, because every past version of ourselves creates like, a version of us in the future. So I just want to acknowledge that. I think that that's really amazing. And also like, yeah, that ego of like having an MC. So you have Scorpio rising, and then so that means your MC is in Leo, and Leo is like very good at being expressive, right? And it is very ego based, and MC is also kind of closely tied to parts of our career. So knowing that there was kind of, I guess, stuff to work through there of, would you say that maybe you were working from a way that was still like old belief system? Or how would you kind of like, why, here's my question. Why do you think, like, you obviously grew your business, but why do you think it didn't last that way? Like, do you know what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, I do. Like, why I built it, why did it collapse, kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the foundation it was built on was quicksand instead of solid rock. Meaning, in like non-metaphorical terms, it was built on, it wasn't built on service. I thought it was. I would have told you it was, but it wasn't. It was built on like, well, what do they say? They say, like, I think it's Tony Robbins that says, in the absence of love, we crave significance. Meaning, my relationships were a mess. I might have been earning a lot of money and have a lot of online friends, but in my personal life in 2014, so that was age, let me just look at my list. In 2014, so age 29, this is interesting. I was in a car accident and I lost all my friends through that. It wasn't a serious accident, but I had a concussion and it was laid up for quite a bit. I was driving from Vancouver to the interior, and the accident happened in a place called Hope.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's like you couldn't make it up. You couldn't make it up. So I had a car crash in Hope, and ultimately when I got to the campsite and met my friends, like they were so like lacking in compassion for what I'd been through, and I was like in such a bad way, and I ended up like going to the hospital on my own in the middle of the night into like salmon arm in the interior. It was a whole thing. Anyway, so like that entire friendship group collapsed, and therefore, and I went into like therapy about that, and it was classed as secondary trauma, blah blah blah. So the point with that is, by the time I started to get a lot of money, I was about a year after all of that friendship group collapsing, and I hadn't rebuilt my friendship group. So I was actually very alone. So in the absence of that love, I craved significance. I didn't have my friendship group. I was alone on, important events and holidays. I didn't have that many friends. Well, no, it's not true. I had a few, but I didn't have that community in that group. And so because of that, because I didn't have that foundation of love and connection, guess what? The likes and the following and the hundreds of people on the Facebook lives it was better than being ignored. And so that's when the ego got out of control, because my needs were not getting met. And so, yeah, that's where it came from. It was a lack of love. It was a lack of connection. It was a lack of partnership. And I never would have said that at the time. I thought I was aligned. And I think we always are aligned. I think we're always doing the best we can at the time with what we know. But I look back and it's just so obvious. I was working alone in my apartment. It might have been a really nice apartment, but I was alone,
This is like, I'm like, oh, there's some juicy medicine for me here. Okay.
Take that medicine, sister.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And I think this is so interesting because obviously I relate on the sense of like building a business. And I love that you're talking about like, I mean, you didn't come out and say this, but it's like, if we're building something, it's we want it to be beautiful and lasting and long lasting and through service, but also like we want to have those like Taurus vibes of like being able to enjoy it with people that we love and I guess within community. And I think that that's something that a lot of us over the past couple of years have probably started to realize, like, oh, like who are my community members and who are my partners that feel good to me. And it's a big theme throughout Saturn return to, unfortunately, friendships do collapse sometimes, the word you used. And that's part of us creating like a new structure for who we are. So yeah, I really, really like that you actually brought that up. You have Saturn in the first house in Scorpio. And so, yeah, what I found interesting about this is that, okay, so there was a car accident, there was endings in friendships, job endings. And because you have Saturn in the first house, which is first is like beginning, right? 12th house is endings. It's subconscious work. It's about retreat, cleansing, getting all of that stuff out so we can finish a cycle and start a new one. And quite literally for you, you would have had Saturn through those years of like 27, probably 28, 29 would have been probably your time where it was coming closer to your first house. And through that, you would have had these like ending cycles happening.
Yeah, totally.
So I guess that leads us into then your Saturn is in the first house, Scorpio. And so how did you start to, I guess, rebuild? Like, what does that look like?
Because my rebuilding happened, well, should I talk about the rebuild between like 29 and 31 because that was new beginnings, or the rebuild like after the crash, like 31 to 36?
Oh yeah, actually go back through that time of like Saturn ages, and then you can tell us what happened after.
Sure. 29 to 31. Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know it was in the first house. And also I know it's at 25 degrees, so it was like a lot. And it was when I started my business, and it felt like yeah, what was that building like? It felt really quick. It felt really fast. It felt like everything I did just worked. I was guided. I followed the guidance and everything just worked. Earned a lot of money. I was earning a lot of affiliate income, like a lot. And it was just working. But I was selling other people's work. And I also think that's why it perhaps collapsed, because I can't build I'm just going to say, I can't build a legacy of promoting other people's stuff, like hiding behind the fact that I didn't actually believe in my own gifts enough, but I believed in someone else's gifts. So that's how I made my income mainly, which is sort of strange, but makes sense given some of my beliefs at the time. So yeah, a lot of money came in really quickly. I just had this belief. I had loads of coaches. I got in a ton of debt. They say in coaching, like, if you don't invest, you're not, like, you don't want it enough. You should remortgage your house. Like, fuck off with that shit. Like, you're gonna make people lose their homes. Like, we're not doing that. No. And I know you are part of 5D business school, and I know your ethos is very much like aligned with that. So props to you and Ariana for that. So I debted myself up to the eyeballs investing in coaches, and I went through all the coaching work of like limiting beliefs and creating identity, but it was just from such a surface level place that even though things happen quickly, I hadn't done the foundational work. And this is what I see with a lot of people that do a lot of coaching and no therapy, is that it's like the people that do all the NLP and all the hypnosis and no actual therapy work. Like, it's like the surface is shiny and you might make a lot of money, but underneath you still feel like shit, and that makes you feel like a fraud because people think you're so great and you're the big I am, but inside you feel like a loser because you haven't actually understood how to nurture yourself and be like, Cheryl, this has been really hard for you. I recognize it. I see it. You've been through so much and I'm so sorry. No wonder you're finding this hard, right? You were rejected, you were abandoned, you were abused, you were neglected, you were bullied. Like, no wonder. Like, what do you need? Speak to me. How do you feel? What do you need? Tell me what you need, right? So for me now, it's like from a very different place of nurture and holding myself emotionally, rather than like, what affirmation can I force feed myself to earn as much money as possible, as fast as possible? It's more holistic now. So yes, I built quickly because I was like basically manipulating the law of attraction. Effectively is what I was doing.
How many people have ever done that? Raise your hand.
Say I. Whereas now it's like a lot more holistic. Like, yes, I know how energetic principles work, but it's from more a place of like, let me actually sit with myself and understand what I'm feeling, and not gaslight myself and pretend to be someone else as a way of like rejecting who I actually am. I know that didn't really answer the question, but like that's
no, I think that's
really, to share.
I love that. I think that's really good. And it's very Saturn energy. Like I said before, like, Saturn it's like our hard ass parent that's like, you've got to do this work, because with like, oh, you think this is the way it's going to go, but really it's like, you've got to create a structure and a system that is going to hold what it is that you want to create long term, because it's setting up a new cycle. So I think all of that makes so much sense. So then what was the then so this all it collapsed. So then what happened after that?
Oh God, my whole life fell apart. It was like I laugh about it now because like, what else can you do? But it's like the most devastating time. I don't know that I've ever really talked about this, so you might be getting an exclusive.
This is Oprah. This is the Oprah.
What was that time like? So 31, I moved back to London. So okay, so the year was 2016. It was September. I was living in Vancouver, but I was jetting back and forth on credit, by the way, upgrading my seats to business class because I couldn't actually afford it. But that's what you do. You've got to be in the energy of it. So you put it all on your credit card. Crazy times. So I was pretending I was like some kind of jet setter, but like credit carding the hell out of everything and maxing it all out. And I flew to London and I had a VIP day with a coach, and she was basically like, what do you want? Like, what do you want to do next? Like, if love was the answer, like if you were actually leading from love, what would you do? And the response was, I would move back to England. And then right away, like within like weeks of being back, I was like, I'm moving back to England now. And there was like no logic. I was just like, it's time to go back to England. And then from September to December in 2016, I released a novel. As a result of releasing a novel, I was not bringing in clients. I had one client who was a PR client who was meant to be bringing me in $5,000 a month, who then cancelled. So that's all my revenue gone. The book tanked. I didn't get my first check till 6 months later, which was like $100 or something. Like, the book was not the next 50 Shades of Grey, and the client collapsed and I had no revenue. And I went to London and I drew all the money out of my account in Canada. I sold all my furniture and I like got on the flight and came back. And I was booked into an Airbnb, which was already paid for on credit. And then I like called my mom and I was like, hey, can I come home for Christmas? And then that is where I stayed for the next several years. And I like got an office job in England, and I was meant to, like, you got to understand, like, I've been talking to this like big fancy like 12 grand coach saying, oh, I'm gonna like live this flashy life in London as this author, and the universe went, bitch, you have no idea. You have no idea what's coming. So I thought I was gonna be like hitting the ground running like the next like young, sexy, kinky like JK Rowling. Not the case. At the time, J.K. Rowling was not problematic, I might just add.
Thank you for that disclaimer.
Yeah, just FYI, in 2016, it was not the times we're living in now.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so that wasn't the case at all. So I was then in the Lake District, and I was like, what just happened? I was like in my mind, I was like going in this direction, and then I'm here, and I'm like, oh shit. So I started doing some office work in England, and then I met this man who was like a bit of a twin flame situation, and that triggered the whole relationship healing thing. And I ultimately set up my relationship business through that. And then that was the rebuild. Yeah.
Oof, that like gives me chills because the way that
Gave me the sweats, let me tell you.
I get the chills, you get the sweat.
Oh, horrible.
So I found you through doing like twin flame work at the like that's how I found your work. So that is so interesting because obviously you didn't see it at the time, but that is a big part of how you are probably where you are today in that journey.
Yeah, it is.
So your business now is a reflection, do you think, of like the growth of what happened after your Saturn return or that process of coming out of your Saturn return?
Oh gosh, it's such a great question. I think it's both. And I know that's a bit of a cheating answer to say both, but I think it is. I think it's all of it adding up. I think all of it's added up over time. And I know this isn't exactly the question, but one thing I feel really called to say is like with regards to who I look to for leadership now, I look to a lot of British, I don't want to say influencers, but British thought leaders, British actors, singers, athletes, media personalities. And this is nothing against my Canadian or American brethren, but I just found that world of personal development, like there was just so much like arrogance and like bullshit that actually now I look at people like Joe Wicks, who's a really well-known fitness person out here. And I
love him.
Oh, you know him. He's amazing, isn't he? Like I suppose he's international now with everything he did with like PE with Joe over lockdown. But he's like even talked to me on like Instagram and sent me a voice note saying thank you for following me. I'm like, how have you got time for this? Amazing. I love that man.
Yeah, he's funny too. There's like a really funny video of him.
It's not him farting, is it?
I love it. I'm
like, this is a leader. He like it made the news out here. It was on BBC News. I'm like, I would be mortified, but he just thought, he like shared all the memes, and I'm like, this is a leader. Like, this is a leader.
I love that.
He's amazing. So the point with that is to say that I was following all these like kind of like, what do they call it in religion, like false idols or whatever, like these kind of fake gurus who are like full of shit, basically. Like, I mean, that's just how I feel. But now the people I follow are like people in the arts or people like Joe Wicks, people that are just themselves and who are great leaders, and they're like, this is who I am, and there's nothing more courageous and frankly badass than someone being like, cards on the table, armor off, this is me. That takes balls, you know. And so the people I not follow now, but like I admire and aspire to be like are the people that actually use their platform really well. And I'm not saying I use my platform exceptionally every minute of every day, but I'm certainly a lot more mindful now. And I feel like there's a lot of things coming for me because now I can hold it and handle it. And that feels amazing. I feel ready. And I think there's a phrase, it says something like, the light that's in you has to be stronger than the light that's on you. Otherwise, the light that's on you will destroy you. And I feel like I can handle it now. Now, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is going to look like, but I'm excited.
I'm excited for you. I think as you know, as we have this nodal switch, which is going to happen into next year, it's going to be big, especially for those Scorpio and Taurus energies, which you've already been cultivating. So, I like literally just could keep talking to you forever, and I want to respect your time. So
I just looked at the time. I had no idea we had
I
5
know.
minutes.
Yeah, we'll start to kind of wrap it up a little
I'm
bit.
so sorry. I took up all your time and didn't answer your questions properly.
No, I love this. I love it so much. I think this is so juicy. And um I will say this, like it's so beneficial to have people that are doing work like this in the world, because I, for one, have gone through, probably like many people, especially if you're on the spiritual journey. I really subscribe to the twin flames idea. I was like, this is, and I have a Scorpio moon, so I obsess. That's part of that energy. And I know I do this. So, like, if anyone's listening to this who's my friend, yeah, I'm admitting, okay, I know. Like, I do that. And it's like,
Awareness is the first piece.
yeah, and it takes work on an internal conscious level to reprogram, to understand. And that's, that was a lead up for me on my Saturn return journey, and it will always be something that I have to work on. So having people who are talking about partnerships and relationships and how to have a conscious relationship, that's something that I feel is so important. B, I think it's so just beautiful and wonderful that you went through this journey of like your own kind of collapsing of sorts, and then you walked through it yourself, and now you're embodying it. And like you said, it's not just surface, it's like integrated, and now you can help other people with it. I feel like that's huge. And so I guess like my question on this is, what would you what would you say to Cheryl during that time of your life? Like, if you could go back and be like,
God.
like, what would you say to her?
Calm down. Just take a breath. I love you. You're amazing. Let's just breathe for a second and let's just go within and just feel our feelings. Let's not worry about what she's saying over there, or how much money came in yesterday, or how many likes, or any of that. Like, let's just breathe. How do you feel? What do you need? And how are you going to give that to yourself? Like, just ground in. That's what I would say to her. Just really lead her through that process, because she was not grounded. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. She was not grounded. I think that's another theme I have heard through these Saturn stories, is feels a little unearthing. And
Like uprooting.
yeah, exactly. It's hard to be
Yeah.
grounded. So I really like that. And so I guess, like, what would you say then to people who are going through it right now? Would that be similar, or what would you say?
Oh, great question. I would just say heal what hurts. So whatever it is that's hurting, whatever it is that feels really hard, or whatever it is that you might be avoiding, especially the thing that you're avoiding, I would face that. That would be, heal what hurts. Yeah. Easier said than done. It's a nice little soundbite, but people are like, great, but how? How do I actually do that? I have a lot of free information on my YouTube channel. Please dig in. You're welcome. Fill your boots.
She does. She has lots
Fill
of.
your boots means like fill your plate. You're like, what does that even mean? Fill your boots. It means like fill your boots. It means like feast, enjoy, take as much as you need. Yeah, that's what it means.
Look at this. We're getting lessons from across the pond.
There might have just been a phrase that like my dad used to say. I don't know if anyone else in England says that. Possibly not, but there you go.
I love it. Here's a fun fact. So I have like really been being called to go to England for a while now. Like, it's and Scotland specifically is like very much so. I feel like there's some past life stuff. And like so much, like I feel it in my body that I have to be there. So it's going to be very interesting. I don't know when that'll happen, but we'll see. And I'll be dipping with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I just got chills. Can I share something that I just saw?
Oh my God, yes, please.
I saw you on like this like cliff top, and it was like windy, and you had this like kind of tartany shawl thing and like a dress, and like the wind was like blowing through your hair, and you were like looking out onto the ocean. I don't know what that means. That's what I saw, and it was Scotland somewhere.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
Maybe it could have been Ireland. Like it was a cliff top though. Kind of like, have you ever seen the movie Thor Ragnarok?
No.
Never mind then.
I'll have to look this up now. I need to know this scene. Yeah.
Where Thor and Loki are talking to Odin. You're like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
And then their sister Hela appears, Kate Blanchett, with like the horns and everything. And they're on this like cliff top, and it's meant to be like Norway or something, but it was kind of like that vibe. Like that was the kind of vista I saw.
Yeah.
I'll have to like Google it and find an image.
I need to see this.
Yeah.
I kind of can picture. I feel like I kind of can. I don't know. I've definitely lived a life over there before.
You were waiting for you were waiting for someone to come back from sea, but he didn't come back. You kept looking out, but
okay.
Oh
my God, I'm gonna have to tell you this after we hang up, and not to leave everyone in suspense, but this is so wild.
He never came back.
Okay, just
oh my God, I could cry.
Okay, so hang on. This is so interesting.
Sorry.
So I have shared in this podcast actually a snippet of this, but when I started my Saturn return a couple of years ago, I was in it wasn't really a relationship, but it was someone who really changed my life, and it brought up a lot of old patternings. And through that, I actually, because I was so on the spiritual journey already, I realized a lot of past life stuff connected to this, and it was the pattern of they left and never came back.
I just got chills.
Yeah. I'll tell you more about it after, but that's so wild that you said that. And people who know me and know what I'm talking about right now, they're gonna be like, oh wow, like that's pretty insane.
So that's your work.
Yeah.
Oh, babe.
So funny. I can't wait to tell you more about this. But anyway, this has been so fun chatting.
Too much fun, some may say.
Literally, we could just like keep talking. This would be so my.
I should have blocked out like 3 hours, and we could have had a good old good old knees up.
We can come back on another round. What I eventually want to do is have people who have already been on do like a little like advice session, I guess, or like people call in who are going through their Saturn return or like who are about to and have questions. So you can come back for that. That would be so great.
If you have some relationship questions, then
oh my gosh. Okay.
You're like, do I?
People want to know astrology relationships, and then they also want to know like obviously relationship stuff. So like we'll figure this out and we'll make it happen.
We'll do it.
Yeah. All right. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Is there anything that we haven't said that maybe you're like, I just want to say this, or anything that you would just give to any more medicine for the people?
I think we've covered everything quite succinctly. What I would say and what I feel called to say, because I know we mentioned twin flames, and I had an interview with Vice yesterday, the online media outlet. They're doing an expose on twin flames, and they called me, they emailed me, and they're like, can you talk on twin flames? I'm like, do I really have to? I'd rather not. But then we put some boundaries in place, and then we did. So anyway, what I would say about twin flames is like, first thing, the person listening to this, I love you, but please don't DM me with your twin flame story. I won't reply. #boundaries, right? It's not appropriate. It's emotional vomiting. We're not going to do that. I don't teach on twin flames anymore. Are they real? Yes. But do not stay around someone treating you like shit or treating you like you don't matter because you're placing a spiritual label onto that relationship. There's nothing spiritual about using a label to stay with someone that's treating you badly. That's not of God or guides or the galactics or whoever whoever your higher power is. You cannot overlay these ancient sacred spiritual terms onto a dysfunctional relationship. Now, can it be a twin flame and also be dysfunctional as fuck? For sure, but you still need to get out and learn the lessons. Like, you're not meant to be with someone that's treating you like shit. That's not God's plan. Yeah, I just want to drop the mic on that, because that's.
I love it. Mic is dropped, and I think that that's so important that we did talk about that. And And so for those of you who want to learn more about Cheryl's work, like I said, that's how I found her, was through that. And now I do believe in it, yes, but I agree 100% that there is so much more underneath the surface that you got to look at and discover. And you can do that over on her YouTube channel. You also have courses, which are amazing. Is there anything that yeah, I guess, like, tell us where we can find you, and if there's you have any announcements? Is there anything coming up for you?
Do I have an announcement? Do I? Let us see. Places where people can find me. My website is cherylmuir.com. Obviously, put my name into your YouTube app. You'll find a plethora and abundance of information there. I also hang out on Instagram and Twitter the most. So if you want me on the social medias, Instagram and Twitter are the best place. Take a screenshot when you've listened to this episode and like tag me in court, because I know I would love to see that. I know often as a podcast host, you probably get that, but I don't get that a lot as a guest. So I'd love for you to tag me and like just share and connect with me in that way. So yeah, that's where you can find me, working with me. I have a beautiful course called Infinite Love, which is going to help you to stop waiting for him or her and start living. And I have private coaching as well, the intensive and embodied and empowered. And it is real work. It's deep work. But if you want to go from obsessing and feeling alone and feeling crazy in love, not in a good Beyonce way, but in a kind of spinning out of control Scorpio way, to being engaged, married, and having babies, if that's what you want to do, then I am your woman. So yeah, reach out to me if that is for you.
So much juiciness. I love that so much. Yeah, I just love it. I love love. My Venus is in so I'm just like,
oh, that's such a gorgeous placement.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh,
and my like Scorpio moon. It's just a lot.
that's a lot of feelings.
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
Oh man, I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I love this so much. Everybody, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, leave a rating and review. Go and follow Cheryl and watch her life behind the screen, and see what she has to offer. It's amazing. So yeah, I will see you guys in our next episode. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for coming on today.
Oh, thank you. I love you guys.
Okay, bye.